Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Cottage Kitchen at the Elliott Homestead. Y'all have been very kind and very concerned about what happened to our espresso machine. A few months ago, we replaced our signature espresso machine that has lived in our kitchen for many years with this dish cabinet. So the question became, how are you making coffee and where did your espresso machine go? And we're going to answer those questions today. And Stuart's going to teach us how to roast our own coffee beans.
It's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
We have a pretty dumbed down version of doing it ourselves.
Yes. I put some biscotti in the oven so that we have some to enjoy with our espresso this morning. So let's make some coffee. We would once again like to thank Kamikoto for being the sponsor of today's video. Long before we had a YouTube channel, these were the knives that I had in my kitchen. So when I get emails from people saying, hey, what knives do you use? It's easy. I use Kamikoto knives, and they've been kind enough to extend $50 off of your first Kamikoto knife purchase using the code EHOME. I'll put a link to that below. These are Japanese steel knives that are forged by Japanese master craftsmen, and the result is a shockingly sharp knife that's easy to clean, that fits perfectly in your hands, and that are made to last an entire lifetime. Michelin star chefs around the world use these knives because of the blade's wonderful precision and dexterity. They feel good in your hand, and they would look really good under the Christmas tree. So use the link below and code EHOME for $50 off.
So the roles are reversed today. I'm in front of the camera, and my lovely wife is behind the camera. We'll see how this goes.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. We use this trusty old Poppery popcorn popper. And there was a particular year or run of years maybe that this popper was produced, and it has like just the right amount of power and heat to roast coffee. So with some small alterations, this can be a pretty great home roasting option. And that's what I've been using for a long time. I have used some actual coffee roasting machines like for home use, but to be honest, this thing works great, and I enjoy using it. So we're gonna use the Poppery today to roast our coffee. Ready to do it?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you don't have to have something like this to roast coffee at home. You can do something as simple as put your beans in a cast iron skillet and roast them over your stove. I've never done that personally, but I think people have been successful in doing that. It might get a little smoky, it might get a little smelly, but that's kind of part of the process. So we will be using some green coffee beans, which is another thing that you need to have in order to roast your coffee at home. We get ours from a company, Sweet Maria's. They have a great online selection, and they have tons of other information about home roasting, origins of coffee, how to roast it, different roast levels, all that kind of stuff. So it's a great little place to go. This will be an Ethiopian green bean that we're roasting as well. Okay, so these are really fun to use. I've modified mine a little bit to where my on-off switch actually flips on and off the heating element. So this will come on once I plug it in, and then I'll start pouring the beans, and what I'm looking for is just a small little movement of the coffee beans. So, in a setup like this, this will get a little bit messy because the chaff from the beans will separate from the bean and the blower will blow it all over the place. So I've engineered just a really ingenious way to keep that from getting super messy. I'll show you that right now. So what you'll need in order to use this ingenious setup is a colander. Mine's copper. Yours doesn't have to be copper, but I use copper because it's the one we have. This goes on here like this, and that goes under here like this to catch the chaff. So what happens is as the wind blows the chaff from the blower, it hits the copper, but instead of going all over the place, it hits the top of the copper colander, and because of the curvature of the copper, it forces the chaff in a downward motion. And then that downward motion brings the chaff down into this catch pan, which is, it's a cookie sheet. You don't have to use a cookie sheet. I like using a cookie sheet because that's what we have.
And why don't you want the chaff to go all over your kitchen?
Generally, you don't like the chaff to go all over the kitchen because it makes mommy really mad.
It makes the wife angry.
Yeah, that's the main reason. But yeah, you can see the chaff starting to come now. Sometimes we need to open the window for ventilation. All right. So that is the second pop, and now we're cooking, and I'm going to shut it off, and it's going to...
He's not used to being the one in front of the camera. He doesn't like it.
Okay, so that second pop and that smoke, that tells me that our roast is done. Now it's just a fan on instead of the heating element, and that's going to start cooling down these beans, and I will, after a little bit, I'll spread them out and let them cool down a little bit more on another colander.
Because you want the cooking to stop. Once you get the roast to where you want it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm getting thirsty.
All right, these are still a little warm, but I can touch them, and they will continue to cool off on this nice cool marble. And let them breathe a little bit, let them off gas a little bit before I put them away. You can see these have just a little bit of a shine to them. They're not super oily. And then you can also, sometimes you can test the roast level by cracking them in your finger like that.
Looks good.
Of course, another good thing to do is just to smell it and see if it got to where you wanted it. Ooh, that smells really good. So I cracked it open, and you can smell the inside. You look at it, all those things help you decide what kind of roast you like and what kind of coffee you're going to get. A lot of fun.
Like Stuart mentioned, a lot of our coffee equipment is pretty archaic. We use this coffee grinder that was my parents' back in the 90s. They gave it to me when I moved away to college, and I've had it ever since. So this is what we use to grind our coffee. We've done hand grinding in the past, but it's really hard to grind coffee fine enough for espresso. It takes a lot of time. We keep it in the basement just in case we lose electricity. We can still grind our coffee, but we primarily use this really old Braun coffee grinder. Now, here's the piece of equipment that I'm really excited to introduce you to, even though you probably already know it. This is our family of Moka pots. You've probably seen these around. And this is what we use to replace our espresso machine. This is a really traditional Italian design. It was made by somebody from the Piedmont region who went to France and studied aluminum, came back to Piedmont and created this Moka pot. And what this is a stovetop espresso maker. So instead of having a big machine that pulls the espresso through, we opted for this instead. Because of the size of our kitchen, the espresso machine was taking up a huge square footage of our space, and that space was better allotted to something else. So instead, we use the Moka pot now. It's really easy, it's really inexpensive, and it makes delicious coffee. So we thought we could make some. Also, comes in various sizes. Family size, Stu and Shaye size. We'll make this one today, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, the Moka pot is really simple. There's just a few simple rules to follow. The first is that you should never wash the inside of your Moka pot with soap. That's part of its patina, it's part of its flavor, and you don't want to introduce any of those soapy flavors to your coffee. So just let it age. Here's what ours looks like. Let it age and let it age well, and just embrace it. The second is that you want to make sure you use good water, because your coffee is only going to be as good as your water. Don't use tap water. Make sure it's nice and filtered, because any of those off flavors or chlorine, that'll go into your coffee. So I have put water in the bottom here. This is the bottom chamber. It's super simple. Here's our filter. This is where our coffee is going to go. And here's our upper chamber. So this essentially percolates. Water goes up through the espresso and then comes out the top here. So I'm going to grind up some of this espresso that Stu just roasted. Fresh ground coffee, of course, is always best. Because we're making espresso, we want our grind to be really fine, so you need to take it a lot further than you would if it was going through a drip coffee pot. And this is so simple. You don't want to press the coffee down in your mocha pot. I just kind of use the side of my spoon to spread it out. Just like so. So all that's left to do is just twist on the upper chamber and then put it over low heat. Your goal isn't to get this to boil as fast as possible. Your goal is to let it take about 10 minutes to sort of percolate up through the espresso. You'll see it start to come up the top here. So I put this on my lowest burner on low, and that'll take probably about 7 minutes to start percolating. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice up my biscotti, get it into the oven so that we can enjoy the two together. You have a lot of options with your mocha pot because it does make espresso, so you can drink it straight like we're going to do today. You can mix it with hot water, which will be the equivalent of like an American cup of coffee or Americano, or you can mix it with frothed hot milk, and that will give you the equivalent of a cappuccino or a latte, depending on how much you add and how you froth it. But today, we're going straight. You can tell it's done because the water sort of starts to bubble up, ceases to come out. You can hear the noise once you're used to it. And this one is ready. So because this isn't an expensive, strong powered espresso maker, you don't get that crema on top of your espresso like you typically would. That's the only thing I really miss about our espresso machine because it just looks really, really beautiful. But for $40, this is a great substitute. Biscotti's ready, coffee's ready. We have a long winter ahead, so we're going to need a lot of these. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing our new coffee setup, and I would love to hear your coffee roasting tips in the comments below. Cheers.